Aloha, welcome to Visionary Souls. It is an honor to connect in this moment and this field, presence field. Already feeling so much energy moving for today's conversation. Feels like a reunion, and just honored to connect with this beautiful light being. Today's guest is Hilary Faye. She's an intuitive healer, teacher, and mentor for healers who has devoted more than 23 years to the path of awakening and healing. She turned her past trauma into transformation. I love that. And now holds space for others to do the same. Hilary empowers people to trust their natural healing abilities and embody their soul's wisdom. She's guided, trained, and certified more than 5,000 heart-centered energy healers. Wow, thank you. Hilary also spends time in communion with benevolent higher dimensional beings who share their advanced healing technologies to support humanity. Amen. Welcome, Hilary, who's joining us from Florida. How are you feeling today?
Thank you so much, Sydney. It's such a blessing to be in this transmission with you and everyone listening. It's a blessing to be here today. Thank you.
Wow. Tell me about training 5,000 healers. That's incredible. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I've received that message many times. Part of my mission is to train what would be like an army of light workers, but I don't like the word army. But yeah, it's been a big blessing. It's not something I sought out to do or planned to do. I know you studied Reiki too. I'll share a little bit where one time I had just created a yoga school. I no longer run it, but I created the Awaken Love Yoga teacher training, and it was a big undertaking, like creating the curriculum, writing a 400-page manual, getting it certified, and I was really full with that. But I was in my kitchen chopping vegetables, and a guide came in and said, "You're creating a healing arts academy." And I said, "No, I'm not." Even though I love the healing arts, I was like, I just created a yoga school like 2 months ago. I'm like tapped out. I'm at my capacity right now. And it kept saying it, "You're creating a healing arts academy." And I'm like, there are other light workers in the vicinity. Drop it to them. I was like, send it to another. I'm full. And then it kept saying, "You are creating a healing arts academy." So, long story short, I received a message in the bath later that night that I should learn Reiki, even though at this point I'd been doing deep spiritual work for probably over 12 years. I had studied alchemy, I had studied, Kundalini yoga, all of these things. I had worked with a lot of different energy healing modalities, but I had never studied Reiki. I didn't really understand what it is. I think I was viewing it like it's this old energy. It dropped in. I ended up getting in a trade with a woman where I would do her one-on-one $3,000 Reiki master training and she would receive my yoga teacher training. It ended up being a huge blessing. I thought I wanted to learn Reiki just so I would understand it when I built the Healing Arts Academy, but I had no intention of ever teaching Reiki. I was the most reluctant Reiki teacher you would ever meet. And at the end, it's a long story, but I only share it because I hope it helps activate that this is true for everyone listening, true for you, Sydney, beautiful soul, and everyone listening. At the end of the training, my teacher, Melanie, said, "Now you're going to teach Reiki level 1 and I'm going to assist you." And I'm like, "No, I'll skip that part. I'm not going to teach Reiki. I just wanted to learn it." She's like, "This is part of my training. You need to complete the training. This is the next step. Find a date, book a space, just do it." And she was kind of strong with me, where I was like, "Oh no, what am I
Hmm.
going to do now? I'm like forced to teach a Reiki class." And just because it was not something I ever planned or intended to do. But then she kept telling me, which this is true for everyone, and some of the wisest advice I've ever received, that people will receive something because they're meant to receive it through you, like
Hmm.
directly through you, Sydney, or through those listening. And I booked a date. I found the space. 12 people signed up for the first Reiki level 1. And then Melanie started it and said, I'd like to hear why you came today. And then person after person, I wasn't even planning on teaching Reiki, but then I saw it was you, Hillary, and I knew I had to sign up. I was
Hmm.
crying. I'm like, why? I didn't understand why. And it was deeply humbling. I went through many processes of thinking like, okay, now I won't teach anymore. But after those first classes, it was just email after email, request after request. I had another big story about how I was chosen, again, very reluctantly, to be the official Reiki instructor of the largest yoga conference in North America. And I was invited to be faculty at the conference. And when I was filling out, like, I could teach 15 things, I could teach, alchemy, bandhas, like all kinds of things. And I was not going to include Reiki. And this is the last part of the Reiki story. I had decided I was going to stop teaching Reiki. So I wasn't going to include it. And I was ready to send the proposal with like 15 different ideas for workshops and classes. And right as I'm pressing send, my guides are like, but wait, you have to tell her that you specialize in training yoga teachers in Reiki. I'm like, no, because I'm not going to teach Reiki anymore. They're like, just include it. I was like, I'm arguing with my guides. I normally don't. I get a directive and I go with it. But in these instances, it was like both times felt like a back and forth, not argument, but I'm like, I'm not going to. And they're like, just do it. And I'm like, no, just do it. I wrote at the bottom of the email, I also specialize in training yoga teachers in Reiki. And then I pressed send. And when I pressed send, I said, don't pick Reiki. Not that I have anything against Reiki. I love it. It's transformed my life. I just, again, never planned to teach it, had so much demand to teach it, was so full with my yoga school, with all my workshops, with everything I was doing that I needed to take something off my plate so I wouldn't burn out. And I just kind of chose that. The woman responded, you're the person I've been waiting for. You're going to be the first official Reiki instructor of the Toronto Yoga Conference, like the largest yoga conference in North America. I felt like I got hit by a ton of light bricks, and I was like, what? Why? Why was I chosen for this? And I like dropped to my knees, got rushed with this pure universal life force energy where I merged into oneness with the universal life force, which is Reiki. And I said, I will never not choose you again. I will never not choose you again. Like I understand that you
Hmm.
have chosen me. And now, this many years later, I've trained many healers, like in the Arcturian crystal chamber methods that I've received, but I have trained now over 5,000 Reiki practitioners and probably over 3,000 Reiki masters. So it was
Hmm.
a life-changing experience. Thank you for starting with that question. I know it's
Hmm.
a long story.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I mean, I was feeling so much and listening to you. And I'm just taking that in even more. It really hits a deep layer in my own being. Like our soul purpose is not something we maybe are aware of at first, and it can come like screaming at us if we're in any kind of resistance or like that, I guess, familiar challenge of being in resistance to doing precisely what you are really designed to do and what will usually bring forth the path of most ease and expansion. And I want to ask a few questions about like, okay, so you're a Reiki expert. This is great. I did Reiki level 1 and 2 in 2015, and because it had changed my life when I started receiving it in 2012. I That was where I learned the word empath when a Reiki healer, told me, you're sponging up everything around you in New York City. No wonder you feel insane. And I had never felt so clear. After my first session, it was so palpable. I felt so clear. And it really changed my life. It was in a Reiki session I first connected to my inner child with guidance, with support. I mean, I come from a lot of complex trauma in that department, high levels of disassociation. And I had never, it was just unfathomable to really even imagine the concept of connecting within at that level. And it was in a Reiki session and a supportive kind of field like that, like what you're alluding to, that that was possible and such a deep, like defragmentation. And and then, of course, felt the guidance. Like I have to share this gift with others. I have to give. I have to give this thing. If this is helping me so much, I have to. That's a responsibility. And also, it just felt so good to be in the field. I'm like, oh, this feels so good. I feel so myself. Beyond the words, no personality. It's just energy. It's pure presence, pure energy. I started seeing clients in person, and this was on the side of having a full-time career in advertising and media. And I just started to really come alive and my intuition totally activated. And then the Akashic records came in and all these psychic abilities came back. And it was just such an acceleration. And I still offer energy healing and hands-on body work. However, my identification with the terminology like Reiki as I learned it, I really want to explore this with you and get your take. When you spoke about the Arcturian Chamber of Light, that's very familiar. I've also downloaded different technologies and modalities from particular consciousness and beings. But then, Reiki, as I understand it, or as I understood it, it's this ancient, energy from Japan. There's conditioning around it being very elite. People used to pay $10,000 for it. It was secret. There's this kind of history. And I don't know if I really identify with that story anymore. Or let me try to articulate. I feel like as an energy healer and as someone that gives attunements and transmissions and can teach others how to do so, I haven't really used Reiki in my instruction, in my facilitator instruction. It has kind of taken a back seat, maybe because I identify with that. I identify the word with that history. Whereas for me in my practice, it's evolved into so many other dimensions and realms. So many other guides have come in, so many other types of transmissions, different types of energy. Yes, all coming from source or universal life force. And so, yeah, it's just really interesting hearing you speak about this because I resonate with absolutely every single thing you're saying. Like when you speak about Reiki and the way you relate to it, I completely resonate. But what are your thoughts on kind of the history, the terminology, and some of what I'm speaking to? I'd love to unpack that from your lens.
I honor your wisdom so deeply and resonate so deeply with everything that you're sharing. And that's why I originally never wanted to learn Reiki. I was like, oh, that's like an old energy. That's when I even heard the word Reiki. That's what I thought. I didn't really understand it. And how I work with things, even previously in different yogic lineages and things, I'm the most anti-dogma person. So anything that's like a dogma or like this strict or kind of this way, I honor the teachers, I honor the lineages, but I don't go for any of the dogma. And as I began connecting with Reiki, I really see it as pure source light. And there's so many streams of this pure source light we can work with. I ended up getting trained in Kundalini Reiki, working with Kundalini Diamond Reiki, where we're bringing that universal life force energy, source energy through the diamond frequency, working with the Kundalini Shakti, which I really think is like the soul essence, like that source of unconditional love within us. So we have the ability to connect to. Like lately, I've been working a lot with the Arcturian blue diamond light. I've been working a lot with photonic light. I work a lot with the violet flame frequency. And how I see these different benevolent frequencies, including Reiki, is that it is almost like a rainbow of light we have access to. There are even different rays where we could work with, like the emerald ray or the amethyst ray, and
Hmm.
each one has a specific benefit, and we're drawn to work with it at different times for specific reasons. But when I connect to Reiki, I just connect directly. Sometimes I connect to Mount Kurama, where Mikao Usui had done all the fasting and meditation and then merged into oneness with the universal life force, just because I really love mountain energy. But besides that, I just connect directly with that source light and call it in as source light. So,
Mm.
but sometimes it depends on who who taught you. And I say this with love and honoring for all teachers, but I couldn't believe how many times I would hear people would come to me and say, I already learned Reiki, but I didn't learn how to connect with the energy. And then after working with me, they knew how to connect with the energy. I've had multiple people tell me they've learned more in my introduction to level one than they learned in all three levels, going to the master level with their previous teachers. So
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that the teacher makes a difference. And with everything I do, whether it's in the Arcturian Crystal Chamber Healers Academy, whether it's with Usui Reiki, Kundalini Reiki, the different things I offer, I really try to balance giving all and the best of the information so that people have an intellectual understanding with bringing forth and holding the purest frequency of the energy and empowering them that we all have the connection to through the quantum field. We can call in any frequency, the frequency of a crystal, the frequency of a rose wave, the frequency of the universal life force energy. So yeah, I think it depends, like with everything in life, what lens you're looking at something through. But
Mm-hmm.
each time I connect with Reiki or each time I teach it, practice it on myself, send it to another, I feel this pure stream of source light that it is still one of my favorite frequencies to work with. But I love working with a variety, and I love that you do too, Sydney.
Beautiful articulation. Thank you. I'm hearing guidance, like as you're reflecting, and the reminder is clear to kind of loosen attachment to certain identities and stories. And also this, maybe you didn't say this as directly, but I'm interpreting the reminder to like, lead with service. And this is a lot of my own thing of I like to be really, I'm like a purist, so I want to be really precise with language and descriptions and integrity. But sometimes that can have a shadow of perfectionism and, like caring too much about framing and when it might not matter. Like if I'm speaking to someone who's like newly awakened, and they understand Reiki conceptually, that's fine. That's a way we can meet. That's a middle ground. It doesn't matter if they don't understand all the things you're talking about and all the rays and the different ways we can work with transmission and, as we develop and evolve our abilities and capacity. What matters is like what is in service in the moment and how can I have a shared language with someone that I might be able to help and, touch in this opening. And somehow Reiki is much more culturally accepted and known now. It's, kind of, I think a part of me too gets, this is a little bit of a vulnerable part, but it's like, oh, it's all cool and commercialized and commodified now. I don't really know if I want to be affiliated with that because there's so much more beyond the oversimplification of the meme culture that is currently taking over so much spiritual wisdom. It's like everything being distilled down to a carousel on Instagram. And something about that like bugs me sometimes where I like desperately sometimes want people to really understand the full depth and the complexity and the like just the infinite beingness of it all and the empowerment of it all as well. I think there was something too around the Reiki lineage and some of the elitism, and this speaks to many other traditions. And I also was a longtime Kundalini yogi for a decade, and it really helped me in many ways, but was extremely dogmatic in certain communities. And yeah, and so gosh, there's so many things. I feel like I'm processing in real time something very timely for me, so this is really helpful that this is coming up.
And you know what's aligned for you when it's aligned. Some things you might think you will practice forever. Like I started practicing Kundalini yoga and did the yoga teacher training with like the top teachers in LA, like Gurmukh and Tej and Harry Jiwan, and they're all wonderful. And I practiced for, I don't know, 14 years or something. I'd been doing a Kundalini meditation every day for
Hmm.
like 4 or 5 years. And
Wow.
then when everything kind of came out in 2020, I just started to awaken to some of the dogma. I
Hmm.
really honor it. And if it's people's path and practice, I honor it. I love it. It's beautiful. But just some of the things like this is the only way, like this is
Yes.
the or not the only way, but this is like the fastest way. And I just thought, I'm going to
Hmm.
meditate on my own. I'm going to meditate intuitively and just see how I feel because I
Yes.
believed a lot of what I had taught. I'm just going to take a day off. The day off turned into a week off. I still felt great. That week off turned into a month off. I still felt great. It's been 5 years since I've practiced Kundalini yoga, which
Mm,
was like the biggest part of my practice for 14 years. And it is so powerful, and it probably transformed me maybe more than anything else. And I completely
mm,
honor it. But knowing what's for you at the time. But with Reiki, I feel we can connect directly to that source light without having to go through any of the like lineages or any of that hierarchy, which I completely understand. And that idea of something being commercialized, but I feel why it is because it's a door
mm,
opener. A close
mhm,
friend of mine said Reiki was a game changer for him because it showed him that he is a healer. So it could be that initial frequency of light that someone learns to channel, and that empowers them, that awakens the fact that they have this healing energy within them. They have the ability to tap into and overflow these frequencies. And then from there, we have the ability to build upon it, where it doesn't only have to be Reiki, it can be Reiki and, or whatever frequency is resonating with you at that time.
Thank you so much. Beautiful articulation. Feel like I actually literally processed something from like an old identity in this. So maybe people listening are having a similar experience because I'm just hearing so much permission in, letting go of the strong identity attachment, letting go of any of the old kind of lineage, elitist dogmas, hierarchy. Yeah, just the control, control and fear. So much of my experience in certain yogic or even meditation practices, even recovery, even a mystery school I was in, there's a lot of fear and control, and we seek solution to our fear and control, but then we can go into communities, practices, protocols, initiations where there's actually just more fear and control. But instead of, spiraling in anxiety, we're at least doing practices and meditation and breath work and embodiment or healing. But there's still that underlying desire running, you're driving, to control something, to control one's underlying state, or to have dependency or reliance upon an intermediary, right? Or that fear that, oh, if I don't do this every day, I did that for similar timeline as you. I guess we do have a lot in common. About 4.5 years, I was in a mystery school where I was definitely operating under that similar motivation, not totally aware of it at the time, but in hindsight, I can see more clearly was operating on that, fear that if I don't do this, something's going to happen. My field's going to destabilize. I'm going to, downgrade in my dimensional access and ability. Just so a lot of control, a lot of underlying anxiety, and also the practices helped a lot, and created a lot of space. I learned a lot. Biggest gift probably being learning how not to be and being really clear on distorted kind of guru power dynamics that I believe many of us here on the planet, maybe not many, but maybe those listening, definitely you and I, we are here to embody examples of liberation, from those old paradigms where we were taught there had to be an intermediary to access source, or there had to be some kind of reliance or dependency on something outside of you to connect to your own innate source. And this is a really revolutionary time that we're in, and on so many levels, we've never done this before in a body. We've never come in. So this is a direct message I'm hearing right now, and I feel emotional as I feel the big transmission coming in, blue, purple, gold, diamond, but some of your energy as well as here in councils, Arcturians, Lyrans. Thank you. And just opening the heart, and guidance is to open the heart even more. We've never been through this initiation in a physical body ever before, to come fully into embodiment, to come fully into the complete overflow of the love that we are as infinite source beings, as infinite light beings. We've never fully physicalized in the way that is now possible because of the frequencies now stabilizing on this planet and now accessible through our bodies. And it's really the frontier. It's a complete frontier. It's a complete unknown. And there's a few, they're saying, cohort. This word cohort I don't really use, but the guides have been telling me cohort, soul family cohort, resonance cohort coming in, some coming in with new dimensional aspects, higher dimensional aspects integrating in to assist. some completely, newer, well, ancient souls, but coming into bodies that have been on Earth for a couple decades preparing, and just so much new experience occurring in the body that medicine cannot always help with. Science cannot always explain. Some of the things that are coming are just, they're completely new experiences of being in a body. And sometimes the best support is going to be purely energetic, is going to be sending you through these dark nights or pain initiation that forces you in a way to rely on your own source connection because nothing else that you will try to reach for is going to work. And I wonder how this is resonating for you to receive, or if there's anything, Hillary, that you've been kind of seeing to this point of what I'm receiving right now.
Oh my goodness, I loved it. I thank you for sharing that transmission. I could feel like waves of light entering and across my skin. And the first message was we have the ability to connect, to choose to connect to what is beneficial for us within things and choose not to connect to fear and control because there is that fear and control in a lot of systems. And what I've been shown a lot, which really resonates with what you were saying, is that this is a time like never before. Just as you said, where we have this support from source, from these benevolent higher dimensional beings of light, where for weeks I just keep being shown how we're harmonizing with that crystalline continuum, like the harmonic frequency, the living light of the crystal frequency. The earth is being harmonized with that. Each one of us individually are. And in that, we have more choice of what resonates with us and more autonomy, more seniority within ourselves, exactly like you said, where we don't need an intermediary or to be told, like in the Kundalini yoga, one of them is if you don't keep up, you won't be kept up. So if you don't keep up with the practice, you won't be kept up in a higher vibration of
Mm,
light. And I believed that for a long time until I realized that I don't need any one specific thing to be kept up in my vibration, that I can choose that and work with the practices that work with me. Like I
mm,
still meditate every single day. I would twice a day. I would never miss my meditations. They're some of my favorite parts of the day. But that yeah, anyone who's listening, I feel like there are people listening who, like you and me, have gone through some different spiritual lineages, yogic lineages, mystery schools, different things like that, that may have brought in some of that control and fear, like you said, some of that dogma energy. And it's an opportunity for all of us right now to breathe in and receive this source light, receiving this harmonic light. What I'm shown is the Arcturians, who are very joyful, loving, ancient, benevolent, enlightened beings. They're constantly anchoring this crystalline frequency into the power centers of Earth, into the grids of Earth, and into us individually. And we have such deep support in stepping into that inner seniority, where that's one of the favorite things my alchemy teacher used to say: in your inner seniority, no one knows better how to be you. No one knows
mm,
better for you than you know for you.
mm,
And that's something we all have access to right now. And I'm so grateful we can have a conversation about.
mm-hmm. Sovereignty, inner authority, inner seniority. I really like that terminology. And I feel like that's coming up for me in my path now as, tangibly, how do we practice that, establishing connection to that inner authority, inner seniority energy? For me, it's coming up as reparenting and really working with, it's kind of a dual, right? It's like strengthening my connection to source, higher power, God, all that is. And also in doing so, strengthening my kind of personified version of that, which to me is a loving parent, and then working with my inner family and the inner child and the inner teenager. And just last night, something, by the way, you have to tell me what you feel about this, but something has been going on the month of December. I had one of the most shamanic weeks last week when I was in California, and it was like full moon in Gemini. I mean, just life was extra shamanic, I'll say. So like everything was just feeling extra initiatory, so many deep healing moments and openings, getting blasted energetically, feeling so tired at times, like just, when you feel a massive recalibration is happening, and then life gives you perfect opportunities to emotionally release, deep cries, deep releases of anger, grief, forgiveness. I mean, overcome. I had a moment also where I merged with the universal love and just deep forgiveness with my family, sending healing all up the lineages on both sides. Just an ordinary week back in San Francisco. And then last night, the dream time, and I was guided to do some more subconscious reprogramming, right? Very beneficial for this time when so many of us are going through massive energy updates, and the mind is sometimes the slowest thing to calibrate to where the body and the frequency is trying to get you to kind of elevate into more presence, calm, safety, emptiness, void. And so I was guided to the subconscious reprogramming, meditation, which I've done on and off, and super helpful. And then my dreams were showing me this whole timeline. It was a traveling dream. They're not always dreams. I was very much traveling timeline, designing, cleaning up, very lucid. And I was immersed in this timeline of right before my major awakening, a time I haven't thought of in a long time. In fact, I think my guides were trying to get my attention because they're like, you've glossed over this time period of your human reality. Like the year before I hit this rock bottom that catalyzed sobriety, waking up, all the things, 2011. So the year of 2010, so tumultuous, height of codependency, addiction, escapism, disassociation, but also this very deep pattern, which I feel I'm completing a major thread of now, which is all through my lineage as well, around obsession of like work, money, survival, like just that whole pattern of really I'm not taken care of and I have to figure it all out by myself, something to that end. And that period was one of the loudest periods where that pattern, that survival coping mechanism got kind of set in concrete in a way, right? These rigid belief structures can be like that. They can get set into stone. It can be so hard to break them. So it was just fascinating. I had to take more extra time in my meditation and the kind of in between state this morning to just really integrate all that was being done. So much can be done in a single night's, sleep. It's not really sleep, it's work. We're getting worked, we're getting cleaned out. And these old kind of origin stories in which so much fear and anxiety got really set in stone. There, we have an opportunity to massively uproot and recalibrate and redesign, with intention. So with some of these tools that, like what we're speaking to, energy healing, subconscious reprogramming. So I'm curious if that's been coming up for you and what's that looking like in your path with these kind of initiations and how you're supporting yourself. And then also just the month of December. What's it been like?
I'm sending so much deep love and compassion to you and all that you've moved through in December. It's to be celebrated. The guides are like, "Woohoo!" Like round of
It's a
applause.
big one.
And
Thank you.
for everyone listening, a round of applause with these energies. That last full moon in Gemini was one of the most deep clearings I believe we've ever
Mhm.
experienced on planet Earth. But we're also still in this cycle where we're in the 12-12 gateway right now, bringing completion energies. So a lot of deep emotional purging leading up to kind of a deeper rebirth on the winter solstice on the 21st, but it is a really packed month between that full moon, the 12-12, the winter solstice on the 21st in the northern hemisphere, summer solstice in the southern hemisphere, and then Christmas and then New Year, that it is a time where when we're in that deep processing, which I definitely was during that full moon too, deep things about being able to trust and learning how to trust more deeply. And in that, I find when the emotions move through, when it sometimes feels that emotional purging, then we have even more room and space of what you're sharing, like had been kind of stuck in concrete. And now that space is there. Or I've been having many moments. Sometimes I'm laying down, falling asleep at night, and it's just waves of unity consciousness flowing through every cell of my being. So
Mhm.
it's both. And I believe it will continue to be that as we release more that is not our truth, the things that we were programmed and conditioned into, we have more opportunity to like increase our light quotient in a grounded way, though, to be that deeper embodiment of the frequencies that we most need, that all parts of ourselves need. And I love that you're doing that reparenting work. I have done over 8 years, like hundreds, received hundreds of sessions of parts therapy and working with the younger parts and kind of all parts and really getting them what they need. And that was a huge shift for me in my life, was realizing that I can become the conscious parent to all parts of myself and to my inner child. That I had that realization at one point. As a child, I had always visualized this woman with brown hair, and I felt like she was my real mother. And I feel bad. I was so young that I would tell my mother who birthed me, like, when is my real mother coming for me? You're not my
Mm.
real mother. And I do feel bad. I know that's a really hurtful thing to say, but I was like 4 years old. And my mom would always say, I am your real mother. And at one point I was shown then in my later 20s that person I had seen is actually who I am, and that we
Mm.
can become these guides for ourselves. I had a really powerful quantum experience with that too, actually, with Reiki level 2, where I was working with the distance healing symbol. My teacher said to send Reiki back in time to a moment where I would have needed it the most. And it was a moment where I was in my closet and contemplating suicide and in a just extremely tumultuous situation, living with addicts and abuse and all kinds of things going on. And I share this message because sometimes what we're in, we will think, especially as children, that it's a reflection of who we are. But I went back in time and I had always remembered that moment when I was around 12 years old, and I heard a voice tell me, this which you see around you, like one parent in prison, one parent a methamphetamine addict, like all kinds of things going on. This, what you see outside of you, is not a reflection of who you are. And that's what the voice told me. And I thought, is this an angel talking to me? Because I couldn't understand that concept. I was so, and if anyone's in this right now where you're just like literally in the mud and you can't see beyond the mud, that's the circumstance. And I feel like that's a lot of the energies we were just in with this last full moon, too. I remember thinking, even though I wasn't raised with any religion or spirituality, that it was the voice of an angel. And it kept repeating that so clearly. This, what you see going on outside of you, is not a reflection of who you are. Because I had been convinced that my whole childhood, all of the deep trauma I experienced, I thought happened literally just because I existed. That I was a representation of the things that my family did or the choices that other people made. And I always remember hearing that voice. But I went back, traveled like distance to meet myself in that closet. And when I did, I had this quantum moment where I was shown that voice that said, this, what you see outside of yourself, is not a reflection of who you are, that voice was myself. The voice I heard at 12 was my own voice, not the voice of an angel. And then I had this mind blowing quantum experience where, in that time, I realized that I was the mother that my younger child had always seen, and that I could become that conscious parent to myself. And it's such an important part of the healing journey. Sometimes the over attachment to our human parents who, as much as they may have tried, and I know at all different scales of success in their efforts, they're flawed human beings. We are all have all of these imperfections, and to recognize. I went through a big process of claiming Mother Earth as my mother, of claiming God's source as my father, and a process of becoming my own conscious mother as well. So I love sharing about things like this because it's really it's really the deep parts where we come home to ourselves and become more whole within ourselves and experience less of what you were sharing about, Sydney, with the disassociation when
Mm.
we had these different traumatized parts who are kind of plugged into these programs or ideologies or belief systems that just are not true and are not supportive.
Wow, thank you so much for that articulation and sharing. It's so relieving, just beautiful to listen. It's like so well integrated, it feels so good to hear something so well integrated and such great invitation. A template was just laid before us. And yeah, gosh, something is really landing. I think I'm bringing through like some new writing, some kind of something's coming. Feels like a book, maybe we'll see. Something is coming around what we're speaking to, articulating the journey to wholeness and through the human experience, like through being fully human. Some of us that come and like, I totally relate. Like, who are these people? Who is this family? These are not my parents. Like, where am I? What timeline is this? As a child, just knowing, this is not what I signed up for. This is really this is very unfamiliar. Like, who are these people? Somebody get me out of here. Like, beam me up. And I totally understand that. And then going through all the initiations of just surviving and trying to fit in and the, weight of the story of the trauma and the pain and over-identifying and yeah, and there's just I guess it's kind of fresh because, it's been a long process of all the reparenting, the healing, the parts work, all the same. We have a lot in common for sure. And I guess it will never end as long as we're alive, right? It just takes new form and new shapes, and we get new opportunities to witness ourselves and honor the growth and honor the work, and honor the spaciousness that, comes from these deeper integrations. And I guess something really fresh for me is just, yeah, this kind of permission to let go of the story, like the story of the trauma and like these cyclical, repetitive identities I've placed upon my parents and the explainers, almost like the explainer of how did I become who I am? Like, well, like, yeah, I had addiction and I had parents and, addicts and the family and all this stuff. And it just doesn't really resonate anymore. I'm more interested in connecting into what is presently occurring now and what are the challenges occurring now and how do you move through those with grace and what are the very practical ways we can support ourselves and resource ourselves now. And which reminds me of one other thing I wanted to touch on with you. Um, because we're alluding to it a bit in the way you speak to Reiki, speak about your relationship to Reiki. So sounds like Reiki for you. I mean, I have a really strong connection to the Akashic records. So when I first tapped in to that work and it found me like out of nowhere, it was calling me in and just, I had like, I don't know what this is, but I just have to go. And I signed up for the weekend thing and had such deep remembrance of other lifetimes and just felt like a part of me came home like, oh my God, this is who I am. This is what I've been doing for lifetimes. And huge part of I feel like a big part of my soul like dropped in. And it was also a matter of being in the field and the frequency attunement and upgrades that happened and remembering that work and all the circuitry that had to open up again to kind of allow those channels to, be utilized again. And then I became a teacher and was same. I didn't have as much reluctance. I was like, yeah, of course I'm going to teach this. I've taught this forever. I love to do it. And this is the key. This is how we get people to connect to source. This is the gateway. This is the vehicle. And then that work shifted into like, okay, this is just a vehicle. The Akashic Records is not the end all be all. There was codependency in that. There were guru paradigms in that. There were fear and control dynamics in the way prior generations had been teaching that work, different gatekeepers and things like this. And do this, but don't do this, and all these disclaimers. And I think just coming from a, more dense time where some of these modalities were emerging and the articulation that was available at the time just had more density and needed more guardrails to help people responsibly work with these transmissions. But then something shifted in 2018, 2021, somewhere around there. It was like, we're not supposed to even work in this field really anymore. It's a vehicle to help people understand how to access their own source and guides and infinite access to anything that you need, not just this like very limited library of, the past, frankly, like very limited to the past. And so I think without even knowing it, I was already starting to bring through kind of these transmissions around connecting to source, connecting to presence, embodiment as the gateway to source. Like the deeper you come into the body, the more you're able to access beyond all time, space, all realities, all dimensions, beyond the Akashic field. So yeah, I'm still figuring out a little bit how I orient because that was a strong part of my identity and something that also, as was mentioned, was like an entry point for people to connect. Like, oh, Akashic Records. Yeah, we know what that is. I want to learn that. And even if that would get someone to connect or resonate or same thing, like, I don't know why I'm here, but I had to connect with you because something about the transmission coming through me was for them, people coming out of nowhere. But then it stopped feeling like an integrity for me to use that terminology. It's like misleading, it's like that's not what we're doing here. We're not really just practicing Akashic Records. There's this whole other source field that and technologies within it that I guess I'm attempting to define because I don't see anyone else really defining it in the way that resonates for me. And, so I feel like I'm in a bit of a void around that even still. Like it feels like more is dropping in. Like the next 2, 3 years, we're previewing the energy now. And when you speak about the unity consciousness, cellular embodiment, fleshing through, like these next couple of years are so exciting because it feels more like our home frequency from some of these other dimensions that feel so much more familiar than Earth. Like Earth is opening up to more of these home dimensions. And I think transit into these other dimensions is going to be a lot easier as well for those of us that travel in dreams or in session and all these things. More telepathy into other dimensions as well. Um, yeah, I'm curious what your guides or what you feel about what I'm speaking to, about being kind of in this void about certain modalities and attachment to kind of outdated. It's all we've been talking about this whole time, but specifically around Akashic records and I think the invitation for all of us actually to bring through our own authentic, unique technologies and consciousness healing tools and transmissions, from your source, your unique source, beyond any modality, which can be this intermediary.
That's so powerful. Going back to what you shared, there's this point where you no longer associate as much with the past. Like for me, I spent maybe 10 years doing deep light chasing where I wasn't able to face the past. And then I decided I was going to heal my childhood trauma and I thought I was going to do it in like a month. And that
Yeah.
set me on a 10-year journey of like the deepest like shadow work. And oh my gosh, I was like, how did I even get through that? And then I've been stabled out for about maybe 3 or 4 years now from that like 10-year deep inner child
Mm,
healing and processing all the trauma where the past year it's like I don't even when I look back I like don't even feel like that actually even happened to me anymore. I think
mm,
processing it was really important. I did hundreds of EMDR sessions, hundreds of parts therapy sessions, processed it so deeply, but now I feel that too, where I don't feel this same level of association with it.
mm,
And I had a similar experience. So I honor this void you are in because you are so pure that you are meant to be bringing forth the purity. And you're also really here to help empower people, which is so incredible, Sydney. It's like it needs to come directly through you. That I had that experience where it was time to let so much go. I've never studied the Akashic records personally. I'm very aware of it and I've worked within them, but it's not something I specifically trained in. But I was in a deep meditation when I was living in Southern California in Laguna Niguel in my garden with these rose bushes and jasmine bushes. It was a garden of ascension. And a whole council of Lemurian guides came to me and they said, you're no longer going to teach anything you've ever been taught or anything you've ever taught before. They were like, besides Reiki, you can keep teaching Reiki. Because I had gone through that whole process with Reiki where I was like, I won't reject Reiki anymore. And that's when all of this started coming through. And this is a potential for all of us. So I feel some listening we have all of these lifetimes. We have all of this soul wisdom where what I've been shown is that the lifetimes we have in different realms, maybe in the angelic realm, maybe in the elf realm, maybe in the fairy kingdom, on the different star civilizations, that these experiences and lifetimes we have infuse our soul essence. So my deeper work became everything I was doing was a direct reflection of my soul essence. I came to see that part of my soul essence is that I am there are many fairy queens, but is a rose fairy queen of light. Part of my essence is Arcturian, Palladian, Andromedan. I was a high priestess in the Hathor temples in Dendara, high priestess in Atlantis, a priestess in Lemuria. So all of these things kind of infused what I was meant to be doing. And then what I was shown, just like a diamond, that everything I would offer would literally be like a facet of my soul, would be that direct stream of soul wisdom. And what happened for me very soon after receiving that message, which every other message I've ever received, besides the Reiki messages, I don't resist at all. I'm like fully I'm embracing. And I would be doing one-on-one sessions in Zoom, and the Arcturians would start coming into the one-on-one sessions in their holographic light bodies. I often, it was shown them as like blue, extremely joyful, loving, like ninth to 12th dimensional. They're the keepers of pure spirit. And they would anchor these holographic fields of crystalline living light that they showed were their crystal chamber frequencies. It has like the Arcturian blue diamond light, photon light, multi-dimensional light. It goes so deep. And that within these fields of harmonic living light, we would return to our true essence and we would sort of unprogram not only from stuff we personally experience, but from the collective untruths. So they
Mm.
started training me in these healings, the nervous system regeneration, the hormone harmonizer, the aura repair, the quantum timeline harmonizer, and how we can work with the Arcturians, which I've been shown are the master healers of our galaxy and the masters of ascension. The different star beings, they do many things, but they have a main role. Like the Palladians are the keepers of the fifth dimension, just like pure love, unity, consciousness. The Syrians are the master teachers of our galaxy. So I've been shown the Arcturians are the master healers and masters of ascension. And this now has definitely been the most life-changing thing because I had so much nervous system dysregulation. At late 2019, I had a full nervous breakdown. I took 8 months completely off. I couldn't work at all for 8 months. I had deep hormonal imbalances. I had so much going on that
Mm.
in receiving these healings and working with this healing technology in a way where, like with Reiki, you're the vessel, you're the conduit. In working with the crystal chamber healings, these crystal chamber master healers would come in their holographic light bodies. They'd be working with these like massive, like Stargate Bogle wands, much bigger than these ones. And we would be doing the healing together collectively. And I
Mhm.
loved that so much that it didn't feel like it was, not that it was ever all on me, but it's like through unity consciousness, through embodying our true crystalline harmonic nature, these things can just happen with such deeper ease, and they're happening through all of
Mm.
the dimensions. And that has been my primary focus for the past 4 years since then. And I feel, Sydney, that's
Mm.
something like what you're expressing in this void, where there's a reason the Akashic records and certain things are no longer resonating in the way that they were meant to, because something new is meant to be coming through you. And everyone listening, we all have that ability. And
Mhm.
maybe if you feel resonant with the Arcturians, or some people listening have had lifetimes on Arcturus and are connected to the Arcturian consciousness, then they can work with those frequencies. Like more is opening up and becoming available to us. And it can
Mm.
be really fun and really exhilarating and without any fear, control, dogma, none of that, just
Mm.
direct connection. Because that's another thing that happened is after at a certain point, I felt I had no teacher. There was no one I resonated with listening to. And that's when these beings who I were soul family because I had had the different lifetimes, like they started becoming my teachers. But then what
Mm.
was really cool, which I feel will definitely be happening with you, Sydney, and many listening, there would be times when an Arcturian being would come and would be telepathically communicating like
Hmm.
whole healing processes to me. And then I would be told, like, this is the next kind of process or whatever you want to call it. And I don't really think of them as modalities, like, it's just like a healing frequency fields.
Hmm.
And then one time I said, who's going to come teach me in it? And they're like, your own soul. Your own soul already knows it. It's your soul that's bringing it forth. So, that was really fun to see too, that recognition, like you are this, not just this, but it's like a part of that wholeness that you are, and that we can access that direct soul knowledge as well. And I'm really excited to see what comes through you, Sydney. I can't wait to experience it.
Oh, you're such a bright light. I love when you spoke about all the temples and the other lifetimes, and you remind me so much of my sister, Cara Sophia. She's in Luxor. She's a high priestess of Dendera and Hathor, just all of it. We were all there together, and we're just finding each other again, and Lemuria, and just so many memories, and the Atlantean architects, and it's time. It's time to reconnect with each other. It's time to, reach out. Like you reached out to me somehow. You've felt the frequency here. You heard the podcast with Steve and, and you felt that remembrance. And, it's like reminding me, just in my own being, like, how can I take that initiative more? Like when I can sometimes feel some of that like existential loneliness, of just feeling, you understand, just like, oh man, this is a lot that we came in for. This is a lot. We came in to really set the new tone, literally, the new frequency tone. We came to set it in motion through a physical body, never been done before. There are no teachers. There are no other teachers that can show us. In this case, we are the way showers, we are the way makers. And it is about reconnecting to that infinite being within each of us that knows, that designed the whole thing, that, is just waiting for us to trust more deeply and allow and let the love in. It can be so overwhelming. My system has been upgrading a lot, well, this whole lifetime, but the last couple of years. And it's interesting what you mentioned about 2019. I also went through a massive nervous system, kind of a break in a way, facilitated through some external undertakings and just extreme overwhelm and burnout, which, forced me to take some time and then go to Maui and really, work with the Lemurian field and reconnect and remember and be in stillness, be in silence, be in nature for a long time. And it helped that the world shut down, like, and I just got to be really alone and but with these new guides, with more guides that came through. Um, so thank you so much for the permission that you offer and just, in your example that like the people I loved most to associate with at this time are just really leading by example and are leading from lived experience and this embodied wisdom. The things we're speaking about, you don't read in a book. I mean, maybe you can read in a book and it can help catalyze some of this innate gnosis, but it's like what we're kind of speaking to is this frontier, this new frontier of the gnosis, knowing oneself and sitting within oneself, allowing your technologies to come back online, allowing your guidance to come back in all the way through, listening to it, trusting it. And the reminder is to follow the resonance, when you feel that, when I feel that remembrance with certain people, to not overlook that, if there's a sincere calling to connect, like we're in such a time where you just never know how reaching out can be such a gift to someone, beyond the persona, beyond whatever story someone's, seems to be identifying in. I don't know. There's something I'm really taking away from this time with you today around like listening to the resonance that other souls are emanating. And when I feel that calling, like to do not waste time, like initiate contact in some way, even if it's sending the love telepathically, connecting energetically. Something came through in a client session the other day around the access plane and this whole not new, it just feels like more accessible telepathic grid that those of us, who can access and really send very direct, very precise messages to each other that are sometimes received in an even more clear way than going direct through like the personality structure. We can speak soul to soul and make very specific requests for healing, for support, for collaboration. And then sometimes the human can come after, like, hello, I was just thinking of you. Let's do something. So I'm loving all of the actions and support and just examples that have come through today with you. And I just love that so much, so much practicality of like, okay, now what? Like we're ascending. Now what do we do with it? How do we actually support? And I guess I want to lastly ask, we're kind of wrapping up nearing the end. What are you most excited about that's like coming and kind of emerging in your world these days? What do you see coming?
I feel like this connection, the message I keep receiving is that we're not meant to heal alone, we're not meant to do this alone, and how many other beautiful souls are incarnated in a human form right now, and how much support that we have. We have so much deep support, and that's
Mm,
why I'm being shown working with the Arcturian blue diamond light, the photonic light, these holographic crystal chamber fields that they really support as we're going through personal ascension, collective ascension, earth ascension. So much shadow is being purged, and
mm,
it gives us the ability to really deeply harmonize. And what I'm shown is that in that inner harmonic, like what's lighting me up the most is feeling every cell of my being infused with that crystalline living light. And when I feel those like just like waves of unity consciousness, that in that harmonic,
mm,
as things continue to shift externally, we can be in a deeper harmonic internally. And that feels so good. And beholding that deeper resonance where we are anchoring, exactly as you said, this new frequency on earth where we can
mm,
hold a deeper harmonic and hold the frequency while others are stepping into that frequency too.
mm.
And if I can, I'd love to share with everyone too. I have a free gift that I've never
Oh
offered
yeah.
before, but I really felt called for you and your audience, Sydney, for your amazing community. I've received these crystal chamber transmissions where the Arcturians guided me to record, and it would be a full energy healing transmission, but it's also a guided meditation with solfeggio
Mm,
frequencies and binaural beats. But there are three. One for the vagus nerve, crystal chamber nervous system regeneration for the vagus nerve, one for the adrenal glands. And then the third one, they told me, is called the seven layers of energetic protection, where it's literally like a spiritual frequency spa, where the seven layers of the aura, these frequencies come in rose rays, crystalline frequencies like selenite, white sage, palo santo, the exact frequency for each layer. And if anyone just is needing that support with all
mm,
of the energies that are moving through in December and preparation for the new year, because this 2025 is a nine, which is a completion, karmic endings, just emotional residue, so much coming up for completion. And the 2026, when you add those numbers, it's a 10, which in numerology is a one. So we're ending a 9 year cycle. So if anyone's just, feeling, experiencing the stress, like experiencing the kind of emotional purge and want some deep support for the nervous system, for the adrenals, for the energy field, It's a completely free gift, and I put it
Mm,
on my website. So it's Hillary Faye, my first and last name, Hillary with two L's backslash gift. And you can receive that, and people can start working with this crystal chamber technology to see if it's something that could be really supportive for them. Because coming up in a month or two, I'm also doing a completely free 4 day training in crystal chamber healing, how we can
mm,
anchor these holographic fields of light and how we can really harmonize within them and receive that deeper support. It helps
mm,
with I'm shown everything from the
mhm,
collective energies to the personal relationship energies, inner child healing, all body systems. So
mm.
that's what is lighting me up. It's really the crystalline consciousness, that harmonic consciousness, because I know so many of us, like me, having dealt with so many hormonal imbalances and so much trauma and having such an intense life that the human energy can be so erratic. And the crystalline energy is so harmonizing, receiving that and working with
Mm,
really benevolent beings who there's again just no fear, no dogma, like it's just pure love, it's joy consciousness, and knowing that we're here to experience that love, the unity consciousness, the joy consciousness, that it doesn't have to be a lifetime of just like in the mud, which I know many of us have
Yes.
had our share of the mud.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to listen to that and receive myself. Thank you so much. If that's funny, receive myself. That's kind of what it feels like actually. When you're in some of these the chambers, it does feel like that. My guides always say, receive your full self. This is what we are attuning for, is to allow more of our full self, our full presence, our soul light to come through. And when we allow more of these energies in, the body can come into this more easeful, harmonious homeostasis, right? So much physical imbalance or dis-ease is from withholding our natural energy flow, right? It's from repressed energy flow or energy not being able to flow fully, rather through like inflammation or whatever's going on, density. And so it's what a blessing to play in these spaces where we have full permission to be the light that we are, to be the light that we are. I am the light I am. So fun. I can't wait. Thank you so much for offering that so generously and just for the beautiful service and the offerings that you are creating and stewarding and the deep listening, the listening that allows you to serve from joy and overflow and really send out the signal to those souls that you're meant to connect to and reconnect to. And I just have to say, I have this really joyful vision of, I think at some point, maybe in 2026, might even be the next year. I think we're going to meet, you and I, in Egypt and do some kind of a reunion in the Hathor Temple with Kara, maybe with a few other priestess friends. There will be, whether it's a retreat or we just do our own thing. I'm just really feeling that vision. It feels so fun.
I would love that.
Let's go. Yes, beautiful. Well, I can't wait for your beautiful gift, and we'll put that all in below the show notes for everyone listening. Thank you so much for joining us today. This was definitely an energy transmission. I feel like I integrated some really beautiful layers present, in the current energies. And yes, my invitation would be for you to join me in my solstice transmission. I will be guiding a 90-minute session, energy healing, intuitive guidance, on the spot support. It should be a beautiful, intimate field on the solstice, this powerful day we spoke about, the rebirthing portal. And the guides have given me that kind of subtext for it, attuning the light within. And the image I have is we have the external chambers we can play with. I love that you mentioned the seven planes or the layers, and that's kind of how I do remote healings. I see the different layers of energies, and then the transmission can work again and again on the different layers. So that was fun to hear. But there's also internal uh, aspects of, they're not quite chambers, but streams, maybe light streams that we can attune more fully to really radiate more from the inside and in ourselves and in our DNA, that can help to spin and kind of break out certain density patterns and circuitry. All my guidance has been around opening up these blocks in our circuitry. And I guess I've been doing a lot of that in my own body to be able to effectively transmit that. So important to work with these big energies and really harness them for all they're offering. I'm so grateful to connect with you. I'm really excited to see what else emerges in our collaboration. This is just the beginning.
Oh, I'm
And
so
we'll
grateful.
see what comes from this transmission. I feel a lot of new collaboration, connection, resource, new friends. And yeah, thank you so much for your beautiful presence.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. See you next time.